going on, everybody? It's AuroraYJ coming at you with a brand new video, and the day of reckoning has finally come. We finally got the ban list for August 31st, you know, late August. Of course, they waited until last minute. And apparently this is a nuclear bomb of a list. There looks like to be a lot of cards on this list. My friend said there's a lot of cards, and I've gotten 2 of them spoiled, one of which I'm kind of disappointed by, one of which I'm genuinely shocked by. It's going to be the very first one. It should be, at least. And I honestly cannot wait to dive into this. I've not really been enjoying the last couple formats, really. I haven't really played the game super competitively since my regional in Fort Worth in, like, June, I think it was, like the very beginning of June. And so I've kind of just been playing the game on and off, and so this list will probably decide whether or not I actually keep playing the game like for the next little bit or something. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get right into this. And if I'm correct, the first card here is Fiendsmith's Lacrima. So this is the thing that kind of helps you set up a guaranteed Beatrice, if I remember correctly. I haven't played too much against Fiendsmith, admittedly. I just know it's really annoying. But like, it looks like this, you know, you fuse into it with the Fiendsmith Requiem and the Engraver, and then you go Engraver, summon off of this, and you can just go into Beatrice and start doing a bunch of degenerate plays. So I'm assuming that Beatrice might actually be safe again, which is a little bit unfortunate, because I think Beatrice is just going to keep getting more and more of a problem. It's always a problem to have access to Beatrice or a Beatrice-like card. But genuinely, this card shocked me, like, severely, because I really did not think they were going to hit a Fiendsmith card directly this early, much less ban it. Like, completely ban. So I'm wondering exactly how much this affects the Fiendsmith engine. Again, I don't play against it too often, but this kind of just kills the Beatrice aspect, does it not? Unless you use, like, I don't know about the Princess and all that. I think a lot of the new cards kind of facilitate it anyway. But this genuinely seems like a really, really strong hit right off the bat, and I'm genuinely excited to see what we also see on the list, considering they're going this strong right off the gates. So next up is Apo. No! Oh man, I'm actually really annoyed about that. So, man, there goes a lot of my fucking rogue decks. Okay. I didn't think they would actually go along with hitting Apo. I mean, the card's been out since, what? Savage Strike, I think? No, I think I'm wrong. I don't know. But the card's been out for a good few years now, and I never really found it to be a problem. I think it's a very outable generic card. I feel like it has a lot of strengths, but also a lot of weaknesses. It can be a little sacky at times if you don't have an out, such as, you know, Fenrir, Imperm, or, you know, the Apo is just really, really big for some reason. But I didn't really think it was a problem. Dude, this, like, completely ruins Bird Up if we don't get some Morg back on this list. Man. I'm so mad about that. It fucks with Mermail, too. It fucks with, like, all of my favorite decks. Okay, I'm not very happy about Apo being banned, personally. I know a lot of people wanted this card gone, but, man, I'm kind of sad. Well, next up on the ban thing is, Calamity. Thank God. Okay, cool. This card's finally gone. Absolutely stupid card. Super toxic. I know Neos can also do it, basically, with, like, their in-archetype one, but it's so much easier to get around. And remember when Calamity was everywhere with Hulk? Like, that was crazy. But yeah, King Calamity, super toxic card, super annoying, made bad decks like Centurion good. Wasn't really a good fan of it. We got more cards banned. Okay, we got one more card in the ban section, and they did ban Beatrice. Wow. Okay, so not only is the Fiendsmith Lacrima, or Lacrimosa, whatever the actual name is, not only is that gone, but we also lost Beatrice. That not only shuts down the Fiendsmith engine, but a lot of decks that were using Beatrice to abuse, like, a lot of, like, Floodgate-related stuff with Nightmare Griffin, that's not a problem anymore. And then also, I guess this is finally another good, really strong hit to tier, the Rogue tier lists, so womp to that, I guess. But yeah, I think Beatrice has been needing to go for, like, years now. It's always popping up and doing super stupid, degenerate stuff every time it comes up. Same with things like Curious, and Curious got banned. I'm just now realizing that you guys are only seeing, like, part of this. Let me actually go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So yeah, finally Beatrice is gone. Overall, for the bans, other than Apo, you know, these are actually really solid bans, genuinely. I don't really think Apo needed to go, personally. But moving on to the limited section, so starting off is Eva. Oh my god, no way. They actually brought Eva back? Okay, so I'm not too sure how I feel about this, admittedly. I think that Drytron was already still in a really solid spot. Like, the thing is with Drytron isn't that it's bad, it's that the other decks are always just good. like, with Shifter still being a thing, obviously, you know, that's a really big one, and then some people are still playing Bystials here and there. Like, that's the only thing really hitting Drytron. Drytron as a deck isn't bad, so if you're not playing those out cards, you're gonna get stomped a lot by Drytron. And admittedly, while there is, like, a lot of Chaos Max things you can do that are probably just better than the Heralds most of the time, the Herald is probably, like, a lot more consistent to pull off, like, without being outed. I don't know, I'm just not a huge fan of this, and no wonder my friend said he was excited to play this format because he plays Drytron. Moving on to the next thing, we have Ash. Okay, so I got one of the other cards spoiled on this, so I'm surprised they're limiting Ash alongside it. I think that an Ash limit is pretty solid, does hit the consistency really, really well, and they can't go for a lot of, like, comeback plays on follow-up turns if you do hit them enough. Though they can just reborn it still, so it's not as good as it would be if they banned it, but they did ban things like Appo and the Fiendsmith stuff, so Snake Eye was already getting kind of hit, but I do like that they are hitting Snake Eyes directly as well. And the next card, this is the other one I got spoiled, is actually Poplar. So for them to limit not only Ash, but also Poplar, I feel like is a bit strange, but I feel like it's not a horrible thing to do. The thing is with Poplar is that if they didn't hit Ash, limiting Poplar would have done absolutely nothing. I mean, I've seen some lists even playing only one Poplar if they're playing other engine stuff, because you only really need the one. So the only scenario in which that would matter would be if it gets DD crowed, so you can only get the one use out of it, but at that point, you've still searched off of it, so I don't know. But hitting it to one alongside Ash genuinely hits the consistency really, really well, and that is one of the biggest things about Snake Eyes, is consistency and its extension. And this will hit it pretty severely in that regard. Maybe they'll just put more hand traps in, I don't know. So the next card, it might be an Xyz monster. Okay, yeah, so Gimmick Puppet of Strings. This is definitely for the FTK stuff with Gimmick Puppet. Such a funny card to see on the list, like, considering how bad Gimmick Puppet was before. But Strings always was probably one of their best cards because it is technically a board nuke. But you probably use this along with the Dark Strings to nuke the board, do a bunch of damage with all the other burn stuff in the deck, and that's how you do the FTK. I never figured out the FTK, personally, and I haven't seen anyone actually play Gimmick Puppet, so I don't know. But definitely a good hit, because I know the FTK was apparently really, really consistent, too. We have so many limited cards, oh my god. Next one is Dark Strings. Okay, Dark Strings also getting limited here, probably so you can't, like, loop strings in some way. Again, another really funny card to see on the ban list, but, you know, I guess this, again, also helps stop the FTK. Next up, we have Branded Fusion. They finally went and limited it. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So we didn't see Albion, of course, get banned or anything like that. So limiting Branded Fusion is going to be a massive hit to Branded's consistency. There are plenty of ways to access it. You know, you do have Aluber, you have the Branded Fusion itself, you have your Branded Retribution with Albion and stuff. You have a few things that can actually access your Branded Fusion, but it is definitely a big, like, kick in the side to actually see it go down to 1, because I think genuinely, even with Albion and Nightmare still legal, this is probably going to make Branded fall significantly down in tiers, because it's going to become a lot more sacky, and once the first Branded Fusion gets ashed and you don't have a way to get it back for the follow-up turn if you survive, it's going to be a lot harder to rely on drawing the outs for the later turns, so that's definitely interesting. So yeah, we're in the spells, by the way, as you can clearly see. We have a lot of limits. I'm really excited. I actually really like when a lot of things get limited. So next we have Opening of the Spirit Gates. This is definitely a hit for Yubel. I guess it also technically indirectly hits Unchained, but if you're playing Unchained without Yubel at this point, I mean, like, what are you doing? But this is such a funny card to see hit, because now you're gonna see a bunch of, like, the really casual, like, Phantom Beast players or whatever start, like, complaining on Facebook and stuff, like, I can't believe they hit my deck. This is so stupid. You meta sheep. I mean, definitely a hit to Yubel, but I'm sure the deck's going to survive just fine, honestly, even with this being hit. Unless we see some more stuff, like whatever this next card is, maybe? Prosperity to 1, okay. So this hurts the consistency of a handful of decks, but it's mostly here for Tenpai, of course, and I think that it is a fine hit, though I feel like a lot of those decks will probably just play, you know, Extrav or some other draw cards. I've seen some decks cut Talents to play Prosperity, or they're playing both anyway, so they'll just draw off of Talents regardless. Plus Prosperity is mostly just getting ashed half the time from what I've seen. Prosperity to 1 was something I didn't think, like, needed to happen, but I'm not going to complain too much about it, because at the end of the day, it is a very, very strong card, and you can still play it alongside other cards as, like, a Saki one of. So if you see it, you'd rather use it, of course, over the other cards, but if you see the other cards instead, you're not tripping too much. Next up, we have Sangan Summoning, so they actually hit this like consistency of Tenpai significantly here, wow. So between Prosperity and Sangan Summoning, that's like 4 starters that you're losing, because Prosperity, Dig for Sangan Summoning, and the 2 Sangan Summonings, of course, themselves. So that's a lot less consistency for the Tenpai deck, which is probably one of the big things they needed to hit about Tenpai. Not so much like the actual payoff, because the payoff is interesting. I think it's cool to have such a really big beatdown focused OTK deck. I am a big sucker for OTK Unga Bunga decks. Really though, the consistency was a bit of a problem because you could just play so many hand traps. And with your consistency being cut, you want to play more consistency cards, and the more engine in a deck, the happier I am, personally. I'd much rather play engine over hand traps, but it just feels like you really had to play so many hand traps this format. Final spell in the limited section is Grass coming back. That's interesting. Okay, so I guess for tier it doesn't matter if you ended up hitting Beatrice, because you're just gonna play Grass instead, but no, okay. Grass could have come back like years ago, honestly, outside of exactly tier format, and it wouldn't have caused an issue. It's gonna be pretty funny seeing a bunch of jank that people put together. I think people are probably gonna play like some sort of like Horus jank, maybe some volcanic stuff. I'm actually messing around with volcanic Fire King Horus shenanigans that I remember some pro player built. I'd have the list like saved on EDO. But yeah, Grass, pretty funny card. Thinking it's being at 1 is not going to do anything, really. And then the final card in the limited section is a trap. Please be Skill Drain. Cool, okay. They re-limited Skill Drain. That's going to make it a lot more bearable to play against a lot of decks that are trying to cite it. They're probably not going to cite it anymore. You're only going to really see it main decked in like random jank stun decks like Runic Stun, Eldritch, etc. Huge relief there. Personally, I'd prefer if they banned it. I think Skill Drain's just stupid. I don't like being able to flip a card paying 1,000 life points, and now you kind of like have a significant upper hand for the rest of the game. But, you know, it's not a big deal to have it at 1 because now it's easier to out. Oh my god, we got a big semi-limited section too, and it looks like a unlimited section as well. Whew, this is crazy. Okay. Semi-limited, first card is Blaster. Okay, I'm assuming all the Dragon Rulers are going to be at 2 then, which is pretty interesting because then you can play multiple copies of things like Tidal and Mermail, which is pretty cool. But other than that, and like exactly Tempest and Dragoonity, I don't think any of them are going to be like super like huge. Like I said, yeah, Redox, Tempest, this one's probably Tidal, yep, okay. All the Dragon Rulers at 2, not a big deal, honestly. They can come to 3. I don't think anyone's going to be cooking anything anytime soon. Full power Dragon Ruler is not an issue, even with Super Rejuve, in my opinion. The only thing that you could probably do with that is, like, spam hand traps, and at that point, I mean, why not just play any other deck? So further on in these semi-limiteds, we have Lunalight Tiger coming back to 2. I think it finally came to 1 a few lists ago, if not last list. Not a huge deal. I think Lunalight's still fine. Without Azathoth or anything like that. It's kind of just a weird rank 4 spam deck, but we have Razal coming out anyway. That's probably just going to be better. Next up, we have Colossus coming to 2. Still not a huge fan of Colossus coming back in general, but I don't think Thunder Dragon's been doing really anything, or any other decks trying to, like, spam the engine or anything, compared to, like, Protoss, at least. Protoss should have, like, went back to 0, just saying, but we got that new archetype coming out that can search it, so, I mean, why wouldn't they keep it free? The final semi-limited card is Ib. People were only playing 1 anyway if they were playing it. We realized that Ib wasn't actually a big deal in the first place. Well, not in the first place, but like coming off the list wasn't a big deal in the first place. I was super hyped about it, then I realized, yeah, she's just kind of underpowered now in the current day. Finally, on to the unlimits. Starting off, we have Armageddon Knight. Was it still at 1, or did it go to 2 or anything? I don't know. Remember when Armageddon Knight was a 1-card FTK? I mean, it was, but now it just kind of doesn't matter. Red Rose Dragon, I remember that was limited, right? Or was it banned? I don't remember a lot of this stuff, not gonna lie. I remember it was hit because of Dragon Link, but I feel like the engine's probably like not great anymore without Hulk regardless. So Red Rose to 3, who really cares? Kieran to 3. Honestly, I'm surprised they brought it to 3 instead of keeping it at 1. I feel like having it at 1 would have been fine. I'm not sure if people are going to play more than 1, because it isn't... No, it is a hard ones per turn. Okay, so we probably just play 1 anyway, unless you're playing actual Magispectors. Next card, Plush Fire. It says with Errata, of course. Plush Fire is getting an Errata, so it's not really going to be a super crazy card anyway, but you can play it in the actual performance stuff coming out. That's cool, at least. Next card is Ancient Fairy Dragon. Don't think people were going to play multiples anyway, so not a huge deal there either. Next up, Danglong. Cool. Danglong came back to 1, wasn't really seeing any play either. Wow, so many of these cards I actually forgot came back to 1 because everyone hyped them and then immediately just went silent because they weren't really doing anything. And then the final card, coming to 3, is Time Seal. Wasn't this card banned for, like, decades? Oh my god. Yeah, I guess you can Time Seal in Runic Stun now. That's pretty funny. Yeah, this card sucks. No one's gonna really play it. Well, that sure was a doozy. That is one of the biggest lists I've seen since I've been playing the game competitively. This might actually be the biggest list I've seen, I'm not sure. But what do I think about it overall? Lacrima, great hit. Appaloosa, man, I'm gonna cry in the corner. Calamity, good hit. Beatrice, good hit. Still not sure about Eva. I mean, Drytron's probably still gonna be whatever because Shifter's still here. Ugh, fucking Shifter. They have Malice coming out, so they're gonna be like, let's promote Shifter more. So still not sure about Eva, but on the fence. Ash and Poplar, having them both is kind of odd, but pretty good. The Gimmick Puppet stuff, no more FTK, probably. At least it'll be, like, insanely inconsistent, but it's probably no more FTK period without, like, I don't know, Pod Avarice. Branded Fusion to 1. It's definitely going to knock Branded down. At least I'm not playing Branded anymore. Wish I sold my core, though. Damn. Opening the Spirit Gates, good hit, but I don't think it was enough for Yubel, genuinely. Like, I mean, hitting the Fiendsmith stuff is definitely a hit, but I think Yubel is still, like, a really, really strong deck. Prosperity and Sangan Summoning, really good hits to Tenpai. Also, Prosperity will help, like, kind of mitigate some of the further draw spells because now we can or not mitigate, but like boost some like newer draw spells because you can actually play those instead of just playing Prosperity. Grass is pretty funny. Skill Drain's good to go back to 1. The Dragon Rule is coming to 2, not a big deal. Lunalight Tiger, Colossus, Ib, you know, whatever. And then all the unlimits are honestly fine as well. I feel like for the most part, other than me personally disagreeing with Appaloosa, this is a fine list. This is actually a solid list for once. I know the last couple I think have been alright, but then we had some that were also like really, really bad. I think the Arise Heart one was like the only, like, I think Arise Heart, that list was like the only good hit on that list. Everything else I think kind of sucked. I think it was a small list too. But yeah, in general, I feel like for the most part, this is actually a really good list that's going to shake up a lot of the meta. I feel like Yubel is probably going to end up being the best deck here because, again, opening the Spirit Gates is the only real hit other than Fiendsmith's Lacrima. You can still play, like, all of your other stuff. But other than that, I mean, that's just my opinion. Let me know yours down in the comments below because that's going to do it for the video. If you liked it, please should leave a like as I'll put this video and the channel into Rented. And like content, make sure you like it, like the, some more ban list content, or just more Yu-Gi-Oh content in general. This list is probably going to make me want to play a lot more, except, you know, Bird Up, of course. Then perhaps consider subscribing and turning notifications because support channel more than anything else, and it's absolutely free. Also, to support me directly, waiting some awesome teaching merchandise in the process, check out Tapio cards link down below. Use code Aurora5 for 5% off your purchase at checkout and support me financially. Also, be sure to check out the Patreon link down below to see all the benefits that you get by accessing the $1 and $5 tiers. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.